On 14 March 2017, we at the auction house Kuenker will hold our spring auctions in Osnabrück. Our auction catalogue 289 entails the Siegfried von Schuckmann collection of coins and medals from the era of the War of Spanish Succession. This pan-European conflict constitutes one of the most important cabinet wars of the early modern age. Here we will tell its story. The powerful country of Spain, the world empire where the sun never set. Since the time of Charles V, it was ruled by the Habsburgs. They also provided the German emperor and governed the hereditary lands. This was an uncomfortable situation for France. It was stuck between Spain and the Holy Roman Empire. Spain was thus of immense geopolitical importance. And on November 1st, 1700, its ruler, Charles II, died without leaving a natural heir. Of course, both the Habsburgs and France registered interest. Louis XIV wanted the throne for his grandson, Philip of Anjou. We can see him on this bronze medal from 1702. It celebrates his arrival in Naples. The smoking Vesuvius on the reverse adds local color. Pallas Athene welcomes Philip as King of Spain and the two Sicilies. Philip held a certain right to the throne. After all, he was related to the Spanish royal house both on his grandmother's and his great-grandmother's side. Emperor Leopold I provided good reason why his son should become King of Spain too. In his first marriage, he had been coupled with the daughter of the penultimate Spanish king. He transferred this right to his son, Charles. We see Charles on the silver medal from 1706. It was minted on occasion of his entering in Madrid as King of Spain. Its reverse depicts a rather peculiar scene. We can see a beehive surrounded by a colony of bees. Above it, two queen bees are fighting. The inscription relates the scene to Charles and Philip. May the better one reign in the empty beehive. Of course, it was never about finding the better king. It was a question of power. Which dynasty would turn out to be the more powerful one? Bourbons or the Habsburgs? Only a war could answer this question. 1701. French troops occupy North Italy up to the Lake Garda. 1702. Prince Eugene of Savoy attacks the French winter quarters in Cremona and takes the French marshal captive. This medal tells the story. It was made by the Augsburg medalist Philipp Heinrich Müller. His works mirror the imperial perspective. The obverse shows the aged Prince Eugene. Underneath, the imperial eagle defeats the French cock. His hands are scattered in every direction. The reverse is very pretty as well, where a storm destroys the French lilies. It was not just the Italian front where there was war. When the French-Spanish silver fleet was discharging cargo in Vigo in northern Spain, the English dared to attack. This was dangerous. Reaching far into the land, Vigo Bay, as this medal shows, had strong fortifications. But the attack succeeded. On this medal we can see the burning Spanish fleet. 1.5 million pounds sterling, according to the official statement of Queen Anne, were obtained in this raid. To commemorate this great victory, uneven had coins minted from the silver of Vigo, which are marked by an inscription. The Rhine was another theatre of war. In its hinterland lay the city of Landau, fortified by Vauban, which would be occupied 4 times during the war. In 1702, the imperial troops claimed the city. This medal too bears witness of this victory. On its reverse, the imperial eagle soars above Landau. In the foreground, lines are visible. They allude to the subterranean trenches which were used to collapse the fortifications. At the time, occupying a city was an art of its own, following strict rules. As soon as the trenches had reached the fortification, the city was generally handed over in order to avoid a storming, which would have been expensive for both sides. Weapons also spoke in the Netherlands. This medal celebrates the end of the French occupation of Nijmegen. 1703. A new war theatre opens. Hungary. Since the expulsion of the Turks, Hungary was ruled by the Habsburgs. They were not popular. Thus, the rebels sided with Louis XIV. Their leader was Franz Rákosi, who had this medal minted and thus showed how he wanted to be perceived. The reverse depicts Hercules killing Hydra. In the Baroque era, Hercules was the image of the virtuous man who takes on a difficult task to free the world from evil. The uprising of the Carracks should be quelled before the end of the War of Spanish Succession, and the freedom fighters became a national myth of Hungary. 1704. The English conquer Gibraltar. Even today, the British still rule a small part of Spain, which they conquered in the War of the Spanish Succession. This medal is reminiscent of it. It shows the victorious Britannia, who is honored by Neptune by lowering his trident. 1705. Bavaria is annexed to the hereditary lands of the Habsburgs. No contemporary medal commemorates the Sandlings' Christmas night of murder, this poorly prepared peasant riot, which should have driven the Austrians out of Bavaria. It did not succeed. It was only after the War of the Spanish Succession that the Bavarian electoral prince returned. 1706. The French troops failed to reclaim Catalonia and its capital Barcelona. 1707. Electoral Prince George I takes over supreme command of the Army of the Rhine. 1708. The invasion of Scotland by the Jacobites fails. Lille is taken over by imperial troops. We could go on like this. On all fronts it was a to and fro between both parties, and the costs rose. In 1707, Louis XIV sent diplomats to the imperial court for the first time. They achieved nothing, because the emperor took their visit as a sign that the Bourbons could be defeated. But in 1710, the British Tories came to power, and they demanded peace. Thus, in 1713, the Treaty of Utrecht was signed. This medal commemorates it. It shows Pax closing the Temple of Janus. It is reminiscent of a Roman ritual. As soon as there are no legionaries fighting abroad anymore, the Temple of Janus will be locked. This medal chooses as symbol of peace the two doves building their nest in a helmet. The Treaty of Baden, signed on September 7, 1714, drew a line under the matter. The medal minted on this occasion shows a view of the Algovian Baden. The armed Mars in the foreground has taken off his harness and sinks his sword in the floods of the Rhine. On the reverse, the emperor and the personification of the Holy Roman Empire bring thanks offerings for peace. The eye of Providence looks down in favor, while a farmer is tilling his field. What had changed due to the War of the Spanish Succession? France had broken free of the grasp of the Habsburgs, but it also lost large parts of its possessions overseas to Great Britain. Spain got a new dynasty of rulers, the Bourbons, who rule until this very day. On the other hand, it left parts of its Italian possessions to Austria, which became the most important power in Italy. The Duke of Savoy received Sicily and the royal title. Even though he should later trade Sicily for Sardinia, this built the foundation for the European ascent of the Casa Savoia. Great Britain was the big winner. Through its gain of territories, it had been established as the trading nation and thus pushed the Dutch States General out of this role. Winners, losers, advantage, disadvantage. The War of the Spanish Succession had shuffled the cards anew, but no one had won the game. The Great Northern War was not over yet. The War of Austrian Succession was imminent, and the 7 Years' War should once more will the European power structure around, before the age of the national states could begin. We at the auction house Kuenker are happy to invite you to our Spring Auctions 2017. Should you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to contact us.